The massive Zephyrian flagship Star Dominion drifted through the dark space between worlds. Its metal hull stretched for miles, carrying thousands of crew members from different alien species. Deep inside the ship, Queen Valara walked through the sacred armory where her ancestors' weapons and armor were kept. Queen Valara stood 8 feet tall, with 4 golden eyes that could see in complete darkness. Her blue skin had silver markings that showed her royal bloodline. She wore flowing robes made from the silk of space creatures, and her presence made even the bravest soldiers feel small. Today was different from other days. Tomorrow, the Zephyrian fleet would face the Void Raiders in the most important battle of the war. Queen Valara needed to wear her ceremonial battlesuit, the same armor that had protected her family for over 1,000 years. The armory was a huge room with high ceilings and walls made of crystal. Ancient weapons hung in perfect rows, and statues of past queens watched over everything. At the center of the room stood a glass case that held the royal battlesuit. Queen Valara approached the case with slow, careful steps. The suit was beautiful and terrible at the same time. It was made from metal that could not be found anywhere else in the galaxy. The armor pieces were covered with symbols that told the story of her people's victories. She placed her hand on the scanner next to the case. The glass wall disappeared with a soft hum. Queen Valara reached for the chest piece of the armor, the most important part that would protect her heart in battle. The moment her fingers touched the metal, she knew something was wrong. The suit felt different. It was warmer than it should be, and there was a strange energy flowing through it. Queen Valara lifted the chest piece and turned it over in her hands. Her 4 eyes examined every inch of the surface. "This cannot be," she whispered. There were new parts attached to the armor. Small devices that did not belong to Zephyrian technology were connected to the power systems. Someone had opened the suit and changed it. Someone had touched the sacred armor of her ancestors. Queen Valara's hands began to shake with anger. In all the centuries since the suit was made, no one except royal family members had ever been allowed to touch it. The punishment for such a crime was death. She activated her communication device with a sharp movement. "All senior staff report to the armory immediately," she commanded. Her voice carried the cold fury of a storm ready to destroy everything in its path. Within minutes, the armory filled with alien officers and engineers. The Zephyrian crew members were tall and blue like their queen, but they kept their eyes on the floor. The Kelvarian engineers were shorter with gray skin and 6 arms that they used to build the most complex machines in the galaxy. The Thorian security officers had thick skin like stone and carried energy weapons on their belts. At the back of the group, almost hidden behind the larger aliens, stood the only human on the ship. Tom was 28 years old with brown hair and simple clothes that marked him as a low-level engineer. He was barely 5.5 feet tall, which made him look like a child next to the other crew members. Tom had been working on Zephyrian ships for 2 years. Humans were new to the galactic community, and most aliens still thought of them as primitive creatures who had barely learned to travel between stars. Tom was only on the ship because human engineers sometimes found solutions that other species missed. Queen Valara held up the chest piece so everyone could see the strange devices attached to it. The room became so quiet that Tom could hear his own heartbeat. "Someone has violated the sacred armor of my ancestors," Queen Valara announced. Her voice echoed off the crystal walls. "Someone has committed the greatest crime possible against the royal family." The alien crew members looked at each other with fear in their eyes. Tom felt his stomach twist into knots. He knew exactly what those devices were because he had put them there. "The quantum locks on this case are impossible to break," Queen Valara continued. "Only someone with access to the armory could have done this. That means the criminal is standing in this room right now." Chief Engineer Morak stepped forward. He was a Kelvarian with silver skin and mechanical implants that helped him interface with ship systems. "Your Majesty," he said with a bow, "I swear on my honor that no one from my engineering team would ever commit such a crime." "Yet the evidence is clear," Queen Valara replied. She pointed to the devices with one long finger. "These modifications use technology that I do not recognize. The power flow through the armor has been completely changed." Tom wanted to disappear into the floor. 3 days ago, he had been running routine maintenance checks on the ship's radiation systems when he discovered something terrible. The royal armor was leaking deadly radiation that would have killed Queen Valara within hours of wearing it. The leak was small and hidden, deep inside the suit's power core. The Zephyrian and Kelvarian engineers had missed it because their scanning equipment was not designed to detect that type of radiation. Only human sensors, which worked differently from alien technology, had been able to find the problem. Tom had faced an impossible choice. He could report the problem through official channels, but that would take days of bureaucracy and testing. By then, Queen Valara would have worn the suit into battle and died from radiation poisoning, or he could fix the problem himself and risk execution for touching the sacred armor. He had chosen to save her life. For 3 days, Tom had worked in secret during the night shifts when the armory was empty. He used spare parts from human equipment to build a radiation shield that would protect the Queen. The work was dangerous because the radiation was slowly killing him too, but he kept going until the suit was safe. "I want every member of the engineering staff questioned," Queen Valara declared. "Use the memory scanners if necessary. We will find who did this." Memory scanners were devices that could look inside a person's mind and see their recent thoughts. Most alien species could survive the process, but humans had different brain structures. A memory scan would kill Tom instantly. Security Chief Thorax stepped forward. He was a massive Thorian with stone-like skin and eyes that glowed red in the dark. "Your Majesty, shall I prepare the interrogation chambers?" "Yes," Queen Valara replied. "We will start with the senior engineers and work our way down to every person who has been near this armory in the past week." Tom watched as his fellow engineers were led away one by one. These were people who had worked with him for months. Some had even been kind to him despite their species differences. Now they would all suffer because of what he had done. Morak was the first to be taken for questioning. As the Kelvarian engineer walked past Tom, he whispered, "Stay strong, little human. We will get through this together." The words hit Tom like a physical blow. Morak thought they were all innocent victims of some unknown criminal. He had no idea that the human he was trying to comfort was the one who had caused all this trouble. One by one, the engineers were led away to the security section of the ship. Tom could hear their footsteps echoing through the corridors as they were taken to face the memory. Scanners and interrogation devices. Queen Valara paced back and forth in front of the armor case like a caged predator. Her 4 eyes blazed with fury, and her silver markings seemed to glow brighter when she was angry. "Whoever did this will pay with their life," she declared. "The sacred armor has been in my family for 40 generations. It has protected us through wars that shaped the galaxy. No one touches it without permission." Tom understood why she was so angry. In human terms, it would be like someone breaking into a museum and modifying the original Declaration of Independence. But he also knew that without his modifications, she would be dead within hours of putting on the suit. Hours passed as the interrogations continued. Tom was near the end of the list because humans were considered the least likely suspects. Most aliens thought humans were too primitive to understand Zephyrian technology, let alone modify it. As evening approached, Security Chief Thorax returned to the armory with a grim expression on his stone face. "Your Majesty," he reported, "we have questioned 12 engineers so far. All of them passed the memory scans. They are innocent." Queen Valara's anger grew stronger with each negative report. "Then we expand the search," she commanded. "Question the maintenance staff, the guards, anyone who has been in this section of the ship." Tom realized that she would never stop until she found the person responsible. Innocent crew members would continue to suffer because of his actions. Some of them might not survive the interrogation process. He thought about his friends among the engineering staff. There was Kira, a young Zephyrian who had taught him how to read their technical manuals. She had a family back on the homeworld and dreams of becoming a chief engineer someday. There was Vex, an old Kelvarian who had taken Tom under his wing and shared stories about the great engineering. Projects of the past. All of them were now facing memory scans and interrogations, because Tom had chosen to save Queen Valara's life. As the hours continued, more engineers were cleared of suspicion and released. But Queen Valara's fury only grew stronger. She began to pace faster, and her voice became sharper when she gave orders. "Someone in this fleet has committed treason," she announced to the remaining crew members. "I will not rest until they are found and punished." Tom watched her pace and realized something that made his decision easier. Queen Valara was not just angry about the armor being touched. She was afraid. Tomorrow's battle against the Void Raiders was the most important fight of her reign. If she could not trust her own crew, how could she lead them into battle? The fear in her eyes reminded Tom why he had risked everything to fix the armor in the first place. Despite her alien appearance and royal status, Queen Valara was a person who cared about her people. She needed to survive the coming battle because thousands of lives depended on her leadership. By midnight, only a few crew members remained to be questioned. Tom was scheduled to face the memory scanner in the morning. He knew that he would not survive the process and his death would solve nothing. Queen Valara would still not know who had modified her armor or why. As the armory slowly emptied, Tom made his choice. He stepped forward from his place at the back of the group and walked toward the center of the room where Queen Valara stood. "Your Majesty," he said in a voice that was barely above a whisper. Queen Valara turned her 4 golden eyes toward him. For the first time, she really looked at the small human who had been working on her ship for 2 years. "What is it, human?" she asked with impatience in her voice. Tom took a deep breath and felt his heart pounding in his chest. He knew that the next words he spoke would probably be his last. "I touched your armor," he said clearly. "I am the one you are looking for." The armory fell completely silent. Every alien in the room turned to stare at the small human who had just confessed to a crime that carried the death penalty. Queen Valara's eyes widened with shock and then narrowed with rage. She took a step toward Tom, and her shadow fell across him like a dark cloud. "You?" she whispered. "A primitive human dared to touch the sacred armor of my ancestors?" Tom stood as straight as he could and met her gaze without flinching. "Yes, Your Majesty. I did it, and I am ready to face the consequences." The fate of both human and queen now hung in the balance, waiting for what would come next. Queen Valara stared down at Tom with all 4 of her golden eyes blazing with fury. The human stood barely half her height, but he did not step back or look away. The silence in the armory stretched on until it felt like the air itself might break from the tension. "A human," Queen Valara said slowly, as if she could not believe the words coming from her own mouth. "A primitive creature from a species that has barely learned to travel between stars dared to touch the sacred armor of my ancestors." Tom felt every eye in the room focused on him. The alien crew members seemed frozen in shock. Some of the Zephyrian officers reached for their weapons, waiting for their queen's command to end his life. "Yes, Your Majesty," Tom replied with a steady voice. "I touched your armor and I changed it." Queen Valara began to circle around Tom like a predator studying its prey. Her footsteps echoed against the crystal walls of the armory. "Do you understand what you have done, human? Do you know the punishment for such a crime?" "I understand," Tom said, "but I had to do it." The queen stopped walking and leaned down until her face was only inches from Tom's. Her breath was warm against his skin, and he could see his own reflection in her golden eyes. "You had to do it?" she repeated with dangerous quiet in her voice. "What could possibly make a human think he had the right to touch something sacred to my people?" Tom took a deep breath. This was the moment when he would either save himself or seal his fate forever. "Because your armor was going to kill you, Your Majesty. It was leaking radiation that would have stopped your heart within hours of putting it on." Queen Valara straightened up so quickly that Tom had to step back. "What did you say?" "The armor has a radiation leak," Tom explained. "It is small and hidden deep inside the power core, but it is deadly. I discovered it 3 days ago during routine maintenance checks." Security Chief Thorax stepped forward with his hand on his weapon. "Your Majesty, this human is obviously lying to save his life. Our engineers would have detected any radiation problems." Tom shook his head. "No, they would not have found it. The leak produces a type of radiation that Zephyrian and Calvarian equipment cannot detect. Only human sensors work differently enough to spot this particular problem." Queen Valara looked confused and angry at the same time. "That is impossible. Our technology is far more advanced than anything humans possess." "Your technology is more advanced," Tom agreed, "but it is also more specialized. Your sensors are designed to find the types of radiation that your people consider dangerous. This leak produces something that is harmless to most alien species but deadly to Zephyrian physiology." Chief, Engineer Morak had returned from his interrogation and was listening to the conversation with growing interest. "Human Tom," he said carefully, "are you claiming that you detected a problem that our most sophisticated equipment missed?" "Yes," Tom replied simply. "Human equipment is simpler and less efficient than yours, but sometimes simpler tools can see things that complex ones cannot." Queen Valara's expression changed from fury to something closer to curiosity. "Show me," she commanded. "Prove that this radiation leak exists." Tom nodded and pulled a small device from his tool belt. It was clearly human technology, with simple switches and a basic display screen that looked primitive compared to the elegant alien devices around them. "This is a basic radiation detector," Tom explained as he activated the device. "It can find almost any type of energy emission, even ones that other species do not consider important." He approached the armor case and held the detector near the chest piece. Immediately, the device began to make urgent beeping sounds, and red warning lights flashed across its display. "The radiation is concentrated in the power core," Tom said, pointing to the center of the chest piece. "It has been building up slowly for weeks, probably due to microscopic damage that occurred during your last battle." Queen Valara watched the readings on Tom's simple device with growing amazement. "This cannot be accurate. Our armor is tested before every mission. Your tests look for radiation types that would harm your equipment," Tom explained. "They do not check for biological threats to Zephyrian life, because your people assume the armor is safe. But this particular type of radiation interferes with the electrical systems in Zephyrian hearts." To demonstrate his point, Tom pulled out another human device and connected it to the armor's power core. This machine was even more basic than the first one, with exposed wires and simple components that any alien engineer would have considered junk. "I built this analyzer from spare parts in the human quarters," Tom said, as the machine hummed to life. "It measures the exact frequency of the radiation and calculates how it would affect different biological systems." The display showed a series of simple graphs and numbers that proved Tom's claims. The radiation was indeed present, and it would have been fatal to anyone with Zephyrian biology within hours of exposure. Chief Engineer Morak studied the readings with his mechanical implants and then looked up with shock on his face. "By the ancient stars," he whispered. "The human is correct. This radiation would have killed Her Majesty." Queen Valara stared at the evidence for several long moments. "You are telling me that my own people's advanced technology failed to detect a threat that could have ended my life, but a primitive human device found it immediately?" "Human technology is not always primitive," Tom said quietly. "It is just different. We approach problems from directions that other species do not consider." The Queen examined the modifications Tom had made to her armor more carefully. The human components were small and simple, but they were connected to the alien systems with remarkable skill. "Explain to me exactly what you did," she commanded. Tom pointed to each modification as he spoke. "First, I installed a radiation absorber made from materials in the human quarters. It neutralizes the harmful energy before it can reach your body. Second, I added a backup power distributor that prevents the leak from getting worse. Third, I connected human diagnostic systems that will alert you if similar problems develop in the future." As he explained each change, Tom activated different systems to show how they worked. The human components integrated seamlessly with the alien technology, creating solutions that neither species could have achieved alone. "How long did this take you?" Queen Valara asked. 3 days, Tom replied. "I worked during the night shifts when the armory was empty. The radiation was affecting me too, but I had to finish the work before you wore the armor into battle." Queen Valara's 4 eyes widened as she understood what Tom was telling her. "You exposed yourself to deadly radiation for 3 days to save my life?" "The radiation is not immediately fatal to humans," Tom explained. "Our biology is different enough that it takes longer to affect us. I calculated that I could survive long enough to complete the repairs." Security Chief Thorax stepped closer to examine Tom with his glowing red eyes. "Human, your skin is pale and you have been losing weight. The radiation has been slowly poisoning you." Tom nodded. "I knew the risks, but I could not let you die from something preventable. Too many people depend on your leadership." Queen Valara was quiet for a long time as she processed everything Tom had told her. The other crew members watched nervously, unsure what their queen would decide. Finally, she spoke again. "You risked your life to save mine, even though we have never spoken before today. Even though my people have treated humans as inferior." "Why?" Tom thought carefully before answering. "Because it was the right thing to do, Your Majesty. Humans believe that all intelligent life has value, regardless of species or social status. I could not stand by and watch you die when I had the ability to prevent it." The Queen picked up the modified chest piece and examined it more closely, These human components have actually improved the armor's performance. The power efficiency is 30% higher than the original design. Chief Engineer Morak ran his own scans and confirmed the Queen's observation. The human modifications have not only eliminated the radiation threat, but enhanced the armor's defensive capabilities. This is remarkable engineering. Queen Valara tested the armor's systems using the controls built into the gauntlets. Energy fields activated around the chest piece, creating barriers that glowed with power. The human modifications allowed the alien technology to function better than it ever had before. "How is this possible?" she asked. "How can primitive human components improve technology that is thousands of years more advanced?" Tom smiled for the first time since confessing his crime. Human engineering is based on creativity and adaptation rather than perfection and specialization. We find ways to make things work even when they should not be possible. The Queen continued testing the armor and discovered that every system was functioning at peak efficiency. The human additions had created new capabilities that the original designers never imagined. "Your Majesty," Chief Engineer Morak said with excitement in his voice, "if we could apply human engineering principles to other ship systems, we might be able to improve our entire fleet." Queen Valara looked at Tom with new respect in her golden eyes. "Human engineer, you have saved my life and improved the armor of my ancestors. But you have also committed a crime that traditionally carries the death penalty." Tom stood straight and prepared to face whatever judgment she decided. "I understand, Your Majesty. I am ready to accept the consequences of my actions." The Queen was quiet for several minutes as she considered her options. The armory remained silent except for the soft humming of the modified armor systems. "No," Queen Valara said finally, "I will not punish someone who saved my life through courage and skill. Instead, I am changing the law." She turned to address the entire crew. "From this day forward, any person who acts to protect the royal family or improve our capabilities will be rewarded, not punished. Intelligence and creativity are more valuable than blind obedience to tradition." The alien crew members looked shocked by this announcement. Changing royal laws was something that had not happened in centuries. Queen Valara continued speaking. "Human engineer Tom, I name you as my personal technical advisor. You will work directly with me to apply human engineering methods to our most important projects." Tom could hardly believe what he was hearing. Instead of execution, he was being promoted to one of the highest technical positions in the fleet. "Furthermore," the Queen announced, "I want human engineers assigned to every ship in our fleet. Their different perspective could give us advantages we have never considered." The next morning, alarms throughout the ship announced that the Void Raider fleet had been detected approaching their position. This was the battle that everyone had been preparing for, the fight that would determine the fate of the Zephyrian territories. Queen Valara put on her modified armor in preparation for combat. The human components worked perfectly, protecting her from radiation while enhancing every system in the suit. She felt stronger and more confident than she ever had before going into battle. The Void Raiders were a brutal enemy that had conquered dozens of worlds using superior technology and ruthless tactics. Their ships were larger and more heavily armed than anything in the Zephyrian fleet, but as the battle began, Queen Valara discovered that Tom's modifications had given her capabilities that the enemy could not match. The enhanced power systems allowed her to boost her ship's weapons beyond their normal limits. The human diagnostic systems detected weak points in enemy vessels that alien sensors had missed. Throughout the fleet, human engineers worked alongside their alien colleagues to implement rapid improvements during the fight. They found ways to reroute power, strengthen shields, and coordinate attacks that surprised the Void Raiders completely. The battle that military experts had predicted would last for days was over in 6 hours. The Zephyrian fleet achieved a complete victory, destroying or capturing every enemy ship without losing a single vessel of their own. After the battle, Queen Valara stood on the command deck of her flagship and addressed the entire fleet. "Today we won because we learned to value different ways of thinking. Human creativity combined with our advanced technology created something stronger than either could achieve alone." Tom watched from his new position as the Queen's technical advisor, still amazed by how much his life had changed in just a few days. Around him, alien and human engineers worked together on projects that neither species could have completed alone. Human Tom, Queen Valara said as she approached him after her speech. "You saved more than just my life when you modified that armor. You showed us that cooperation between species creates possibilities we never imagined." Tom smiled and looked out at the stars visible through the command deck windows. "That is what humans do best, Your Majesty. We find ways to make impossible things possible." From that day forward, human engineers became some of the most valued members of every Zephyrian crew. Their ability to solve problems through creativity and determination earned them respect throughout the galaxy, and it all started with one human who was willing to risk everything to save the life of an alien queen.